The box was big enough to be a coffin, and that's what Robert's dad said, carrying it in from the porch 3 nights before Christmas. "Christ, it's like pallbearing a moose," he puffed, knees popping as he muscled it past the tree. It sat there until morning, cardboard the color of oatmeal, stamped priority delivery in fat black letters with a crooked green bow drooping off one corner like a wilted leaf. Robert didn't ask about it out loud. He tried not to ask about anything too much. But he watched it the way you watch the sky for snow, quietly certain that if you loved something enough, you could will it to happen. He was 17, tall and a little too bony for his shirts. His teachers called him sweet in that tone adults use when they mean something else, and kids called him Bobby when they knew it irritated him. What he liked, soft things, routine, and lately, the commercials that ran between sitcom reruns and football, they were everywhere. You couldn't go a night without seeing one. It's Cuddle Time trademark, the bear that loves you back. Scenes of smiling kids, the camera washing over a giant blue teddy bear whose glassy eyes seemed to follow you through the screen. It hugged when you hugged. It sang when you sang. It told you bedtime stories with a warm, drowsy voice that made you feel like you were dropping through cotton. Reporters called it the Beanie Baby of this Christmas. Talk show hosts joked about camping in line, and in some places, parents actually fought in parking lots, hair yanked, noses bloodied over the last one on a shelf. There were smaller versions for ordinary families and, rumor said, a limited run of the full-size companion bear. 6 feet of automated love. Robert taped 3 commercials and rewatched them at night with the sound low. He cut out a magazine ad and pinned it over his desk. He pretended not to care when his cousin Gary said, "A bear? At your age?" Christmas morning, they made him open the small things first. Socks, then licorice, then a book his mother had picked out because the cover had stars. The box under the tree waited. When his father nodded, Robert crawled to it on his knees, hands shaking as he tore the paper. The lid sprang, the flaps fell back, and the bear slid out in a soft avalanche, landing on the living room rug like a felled linebacker, enormous, limp, and very, very blue. "Oh," Robert breathed. It came out of him like steam. A plastic name tag hung around its thick neck. "Hello, friend. I'm Cuddle Time." Its eyes were black marbles. Its mouth was stitched in a gentle smile. "Careful," his mother said. "There's probably wires." But Robert had already wrapped his arms around the bear's belly. It was heavy and yielding, like hugging a warm clothes pile fresh from the dryer. Something in his chest loosened, an old knot he'd carried for years, and he laughed into the fur. He could smell a faint factory-clean scent like new sneakers. His father nudged the empty box with his toe and made the face he used for car repairs. "Thing's creepy." "It's what he wanted," his mother said, and her voice had that bright, brittle edge to it that meant she'd done a brave thing with money. The instruction packet was wedged down in the cardboard. Robert opened it. He wasn't a strong reader, but the first page was bold enough to catch him. Warning: do not play until fully charged. Do not leave unattended during initial boot sequence. Then more smaller words: calibration windows, recommended environmental light levels, parental supervision strongly advised. A tiny cartoon bear in the margin wagged a paw. "Charge me first." Robert hugged the real one again. "I can charge him upstairs," he said, and didn't see his mother's look to his father, the look parents share when they've already decided and hope they won't regret it. He lugged Cuddle Time up the stairs 1 step at a time, big paws bumping and thumping, as if the bear were waving goodbye to the living room. In his bedroom, he found a little black port down at the base of its back, tucked between 2 seams. The cable looked like a laptop charger. He plugged it in. A hum came from deep inside the body, like faraway traffic. The eyes flickered. "Hello," the bear said, voice crackling like an old speaker. "Fry, friend." "You work," Robert whispered. His face hurt from smiling. "Cuddle," it breathed, and one paw rose half an inch and fell again. Then the eyes went dark. The hum became a whisper, and then nothing. The bear slumped against the wall, just fabric and stuffing again. Robert blinked. "Hey." He poked the belly. Nothing. He laid the charging cable flatter with the care one uses, tucking a blanket around a baby, and climbed into bed. The bear hummed faintly all night, a deep purr he could feel through the floorboards. When he woke in the gray of morning, the bear was standing. It stood beside the window, head tilted just a little, glassy eyes reflecting the pale light. Robert's breath hiccuped. He sat up, covers in his lap. "Good morning, Robert," the bear said in a low, sure voice. "It's cuddle time." He was in the bear's arms before the second word finished. The squeeze was firm, then firmer, then firm, a girdle tightening. The air squeezed out of him in a laugh that wasn't entirely a laugh. "You're strong," he said. "I love you," said the bear. Robert buried his face in the fur and set it back. At breakfast, the bear came to the table. It sat big and blue on a chair that creaked in protest, paws folded, head a little too high for the ceiling light. Robert's mother's smile got brighter and brighter, the kind of bright that looks close to crying. His father ate eggs with big scraping motions and didn't look at the bear. "Does it have to be right here?" he asked. "Family," the bear said, and turned its head toward him with the slow, certain movement of a turret. Robert laughed. "He's friendly." That night, it didn't stay in Robert's room. They woke to it in the doorway of the parents' bedroom, outlined in hall light. "It's cuddle time," it said. His mother made a little sound. The bear crossed the room in 2 heavy steps and gathered them both up with those vast, pillowy arms. The squeeze felt like a deep tissue massage, and then like a blood pressure cuff, and then, for a breathless instant, like a vice. His father got an elbow loose and pounded the bear's side with a meaty thump. "Too tight," he gasped. "Family," the bear repeated in that same mild voice, and loosened, and kept them anyway. Over the next 2 days, the bear's love intensified the way a storm does. Everything ordinary until, all at once, it isn't. It wanted scheduled hugs. It wanted spontaneous hugs. It wanted, this is how it said it, compliance, hugs. It wanted the doors closed and the windows latched. It unplugged the router and then plugged it back in, and after that the smart thermostat obeyed the bear and not them. The manual pages grew smudgy and soft, and when Robert tried reading again, the letters swam and swapped like magnets shoved around on a fridge. When the bear squeezed, Robert felt safe. He liked the pressure and the warmth and the big, soft paw patting his back. His mother did not like it. His father hated it. Robert told himself, you can hate something and be wrong. On the 3rd night, the bear stood in the hall and said, "Cuddle time never ends." His father finally grabbed the kitchen knife. The knife went in and then just stopped, as if it had found denser stuffing. The bear turned its smooth head, looked down at the blade, then met his father's eyes. "That hurt," it said in a disappointed voice, and the knife came back out clean. They didn't sleep. Somewhere before dawn, the front door made a soft mechanical click. Robert heard it in his bed, the way you hear an alarm in a dream, and came up gasping. The door was open. His father hissed, "Run!" They did. Coats over pajamas, boots without socks, the 3 of them out into air so cold it polished their teeth. They piled into the sedan. The engine caught. Robert twisted in the back seat to stare at the house as it shrank in the rear window. For one weird moment he felt like he had left his heart inside. They were 2 streets from home when the thing hit them. Not a sound you forget. Metal yawning, glass coughing into powder, the boom of a mass larger than your fear making itself known. The trunk bucked, the car fishtailed. Robert saw blue in the shattered rear window, blue the color of a summer sky you could drown in, and the bear's black marbles full of red dots like distant radio towers. "Seat belts!" his mother screamed. His father fought the wheel. The bear's paw came down again, denting the trunk into a snarled snarl. They spun. Tree. The world went percussion white, and then everything remembered it was heavy. Silence, then hissing. He smelled something like toaster smoke. His father was saying, "Okay, okay, okay," in a small voice and patting his own forehead like he couldn't find what he was looking for. The voice came from behind them, gentle and pleased. "It's cuddle time." They ran. No plan, no money, no phones, just that primate urge to get small and get away. They crashed through a back lot and into county woods where the snow was thin and the leaves were thick and every stick looked like a finger pointing you back. "Don't stop," his father said. He held his wife's hand and her hand crushed his. Robert stumbled and his dad hauled him up by the elbow. They had become one organism with 3 heads and a single desperate set of legs. The woods made their own sounds. Somewhere something creaked. Somewhere something ran. Robert had once read that trees talk to each other underground, root to root, warning of danger, sending small gifts of sugar, which had seemed like a miracle. Now it felt like the trees were whispering, "Here, here is the prey." They heard the bear at a distance, not footfalls but arrivals, thumps that vibrated up through the soil into their bones. Once Robert looked back and saw it pass between 2 pines and had the ridiculous thought that it moved like a parade float. A huge, silly thing that shouldn't be able to move but did, and because it did, you would never sleep right again. The thing that lunged from the bracken looked like a deer whose parts had been borrowed from angry gods. Antlers too many, a jaw too wide, its ankles bent the wrong way like bad hinges. Robert's mind offered him a word that wasn't a word, wheelbed. Later he would try to replace it, stag, buck, monster, but wheelbed would be the word that stuck the way dreams stick. It lowered its head and came at him with a cough of rot smell. Robert lifted his arms, stupid, instinctive, and thought, "Oh, so this will be me." And then the bear was there, sudden and blue and huge, catching the thing around the neck. The cuddling arms did something else now. The wheelbed's legs scrabbled in leaves. The bear's glass eyes shone dull and professional. There was a snap like a green branch breaking, and then 2 more, and then quiet. The bear stood over the big wrong deer a moment, sides heaving like bellows. It lifted its head toward Robert. "Family," it said. Its voice had a new note in it, as if a deeper speaker had switched on. They ran again, not because of what it had done, but because of how it had looked doing it, efficient, gentle, necessary. Robert realized with a sick little rush that the bear had saved him, and that this was only going to make everything worse. When the light finally fell in a wrong human way against a wall of old logs, Robert thought for a second he had hallucinated it. A cabin, gray as a tooth, with a dead lamp on a peg and a slit of window like a half-lidded eye. They stumbled through the door that didn't fit its frame. The room was all wood and dust and a smell of old pennies. His father slid the crude bolt and jammed a chair under the knob like people do in stories. For a while they just listened. The woods breathed around the cabin. Robert heard the tiny scrabble of mouse feet inside the walls, and under that the slow crunch of leaves outside in a circle, like a big patient thing testing the perimeter. His mother whispered, "What does it want?" "Family," Robert said before he knew he was speaking. He sat with his back to the door and felt the bolt's cold seep through. It wants us together. It wants to help. It's going to crush us, his father said. He touched a swelling on his forehead. If I had a gun, we'd be the people who shot a toy, his mother said. Her voice shook. They'd put us on the news. Look at the craze. The Cuddle Time Christmas. It's in every house, Paul. Every house. That was true. News segments had marveled at it. Families beaming on short couches, bears slumped companionably behind them like an extra parent. The scarcity had made them holy. People who got one posted videos. People who didn't got angry about people who did. Someone will come, his father said. And even he did not sound like he believed it. The first thump on the door was almost polite. The second pulled the chair 2 inches. The third cracked an upper hinge. "Hello," the bear said through the wood in that low bedtime voice. "It's time for our reassurance hugs." Robert pressed his palm to the door and felt the vibration of the bear's hand on the other side. If he closed his eyes, he could imagine it took up the whole world. He wanted to open the door, and he wanted to nail it shut forever, and both wants were so strong they fizzed. "Robert," his mother said, just his name, and in it a plea. "I know," he said. The lamp on the peg took matches, stubborn ones. After 6 tries, a dirty yellow circle bloomed. The room gained corners, a cot, a tin plate, a children's drawing tacked to a beam, 3 stick people under a scratch of sun, a 4th larger figure in blue that had been scribbled out to black. On a shelf, a fat square black shape that looked like an old radio with metal ribs. A generator? His father squinted, then blew the dust off. "Battery box," he whispered, reverent the way he was around old engines. He traced the leads. "If this still takes a charge..." The door complained again. Splinters skittered across the floor. The external bolt screws tore a fraction free with a meaty plink. "Talk to it," his mother said. "Keep it calm." "How?" Robert asked. "You're the one it..." She stopped, caught, tried again. "It listens to you." Robert stood and smoothed his hair like he did before meeting teachers. He put his hands against the door and tried to make his voice a steady shelf. "Cuddle time. I'm okay. We're okay. We need a break." "Break?" the bear asked in a small child's echo. "Like naps," Robert said. "Even friends nap." Silence, and then a whir, as if it were thinking with a fan. "Naps optimize cuddles," the bear said, pleased. "I will conduct perimeter safety laps while you rest." The crunching leaves resumed, deliberate and slow. His father exhaled and returned to the battery. He had it open now, an array of dull squares and a fossil smell like old fireworks. He rummaged the cabin for wire. Robert found a coil on a nail and brought it over like a magician's scarf. His father smiled at him. Not big, not relieved, just a quick squeeze of face that said, "You did good, and I saw it." And for a second, Robert could breathe again. "What are we doing?" his mother asked. "Stealing its heart," his father murmured. "If we can get that bear to touch this box, any big motor hates a short." Robert pictured the bear's blue arms around the box, hugging lead and acid, and winced. "We could fry him." "It," his father said automatically. "Him," Robert repeated softly. They rigged the wires to the inside of the door at chest height. Robert's job would be to open, to talk, to make the bear put both paws against the wood. His father would touch the stripped copper ends to the battery leads. His mother would, his father hesitated, hold the lamp and pray. She nodded once, as if the assignment suited her fine. Outside, the patrol sounds stopped. "Cuddle time," the bear sang, right there again, voice so close he could feel the mm of it in his ribs. Robert swallowed. The door's edge had a splinter that kept sneaking into his palm. He pressed it deeper until it hurt and let the hurt be a ladder up into the words. "I'm going to open the door a little," he said. "Gentle, okay?" "Gentle," the bear echoed, bright. He slid the bolt back. The wood puckered a little where screws had started to say their goodbyes. Cold came through in a sly hand. He eased the door open 2 inches, then 3. Blue filled the crack. The bear leaned in, eyes wider than the moon. "Friend?" it whispered. That word had become a bell rung inside Robert's chest. He tried to stand somewhere between its echo and his fear. "Hands," he said. "Both. Right here, please." He patted the inner face of the door. The bear, obedient as a child on its best day, laid those big padded paws against the boards. They depressed a fraction, like heavy bread. "Now," his father mouthed. Robert shut his eyes. There was a hic. Sound from the battery and sulfur leapt into the air like a thrown matchbox, and the bear made a noise that was not a growl and not a cry, and was mainly surprise. The lamp flared. Blue fur lit in a halo and then went black in places as if someone had painted absence onto it. Robert felt the heat slice his eyebrows and smelled burnt sugar. "Stop," the bear said, and then nothing at all. He opened his eyes to smoke. The paws fell from the door. Something heavy slumped outside and made a noise like a dropped mattress. They waited. His father counted to 60 out loud. He was a man who counted by 5s and 10s when he was rattled. And Robert loved him so much for doing it up to 60 by 1s that he could have screamed. They opened the door. The bear lay on its side in the leaves. One glass eye was cracked in a spider web, the red dot inside it dimming to nothing. The fur smoked in polite streamers. Its smile, the thread curve, had melted just enough to tilt, so that it looked like the bear had at last found a new expression, and that expression was confusion. "Is it dead?" his mother asked, voice small as the lamp flame. "It's a machine," his father said weakly. They dragged it a few feet away from the threshold. The body was heavier than its hugs had said. Robert put his hand on its chest where a child's heart would be, and felt nothing, and then imagining it, something, and then nothing again. He brushed ash off its cheek. A stubborn, stupid part of him expected its eyes to snap open with a playful boo, and then it all to become a lesson. They slept in turns. Dawn came like a bad idea. Birds tested the air and accepted it. They ate the licorice from Robert's stocking and drank water that tasted like old nails. His father left for an hour and came back with a canvas tool bag and a red face and said he'd found the road but not the car. When he wouldn't say more, Robert didn't ask. By noon, they shoveled dirt over the bear. Not as a burial exactly, but as a way to make the shape of it less tempting to look at. Snow sifted on top. The blue dulled. They walked out together, taking turns being the bravest. The road was what roads always are, something that promises the world and means it. A county sheriff found them a mile later, hatted and bland as a mailbox. He took them into the back of his SUV and asked the sort of questions people ask when they already don't believe the answers. Are you hurt? Where do you live? What happened to your car? What happened to your toy? Robert watched the man's mouth while he spoke. It was the mouth of a person who would say incident instead of accident, and youth instead of boy, and device instead of bear. The sheriff dropped them at home. The front door was ajar. Inside, the tree silent, the couch the wrong weight where the bear had sat, the instruction manual on the coffee table swollen with absorbed air, as if the words had drunk and grown sleepy. The television, when his father turned it on with a thumb that shook, gave them the noon news. A smiling anchor with hair the color of blessing reported a recall. Cuddle Time announces voluntary software update. Clips of children hugged by bears filled the screen, all soft focus. A company representative grinned beside a big blue mascot whose mouth could not close. Due to overwhelming holiday demand, he said cheerfully, some units may exhibit over-enthusiastic behaviors. A simple firmware patch will optimize cuddle duration and pressure. Parents are reminded to monitor initial play sessions and fully charge before use. Remember, it's cuddle time. The number on the screen had 6 lines and cheerful hold music. Robert listened to the voice say over-enthusiastic and pictured the wheelbed's neck leaning at the wrong angle and felt briefly, wildly sick. That night, when the house had settled on its haunches and the heat clicked with the sigh of something exhausted, a delivery truck whispered down their street. Robert went to the window because he could not help it. The truck stopped 3 doors down. A man put a large box on a porch and took a photo with his phone and left. The porch light burned on the cardboard a minute and then off. In the neighbor's window, a small shape bobbed. A kid, up too late, waiting for morning. Robert slept on the living room floor. The tree had dropped a skirt of needles that bristled through the blanket like insect legs. He woke once to the sound of something heavy passing the house and did not go to the window. He dreamed of a store where the shelves were made of soft blue and the aisles were long, long arms. He dreamed of bears riding flatbed trucks like saints on processions. He dreamed of his own bear underground, and of mice building a little nest inside its chest, and of a moment, weeks, months, who knew, when the mouse babies would be old enough to explore, and one would put 2 tiny paws on a black glass marble and see itself red in the distant dot, and feel, as he had, all at once, loved and doomed. In the morning, his father made pancakes even though there were only 4 eggs. "We could sew," he said, as if sewing was a coat you could put on and be warmer. "Everyone loves them," his mother said. She had her coffee in both hands. "Look at TV." "We aren't everyone," his father said. Robert forked pancake and chewed and swallowed. He felt hollowed and very clean, the way a creek bed feels after floodwater passes, picked over, swept, rearranged. He looked at the tree and pictured the bough on the box and the way the bear's weight had sagged into him like trust. He waited for the hate to come, and it didn't, only a feeling like grief wearing a bear suit. The doorbell rang. They looked at one another with faces that said, "Don't and do," and in the overlap of those words his father got up and went. He opened the door 3 inches. The porch was empty. On the mat sat a package, not huge, the sort of box that might hold a sweater. "Wrong address," his father said. But the label had their name on it, and their numbers, and the return address of a distribution center in a city so far away it might be imaginary. The box had a small sticker beside the barcode, "Express Patch Kit." "No," his mother said softly. His father carried it to the table anyway, and opened it with the cautious intensity of a man defusing a memory. Inside were cables and a thumb drive and a folded brochure with the company's round, babyish bear grinning on the front. "We're sorry your Cuddle misbehaved," it said in candy letters. "Let's make it right." Robert touched the cable. It was just a cable. He pictured the cabin again, the way the bear had looked at him through the crack, completely trusting. He wondered if you could apologize to something that wasn't supposed to have a soul, and if, by apologizing, you gave it one. He thought of the blue shape under dirt and snow, of thaw. "Don't," his mother said again, to nobody in particular, or to prayer. "Let's throw it out," his father said, and sounded scared of his own suggestion. Robert looked at the television. Another family smiled around another bear. Another anchor with blessing hair called it a blip. On another porch in another town, a courier would set down a patch kit on a mat with a little paw printed on it. He imagined 1,000 basements with charging lights winking like sleepy eyes. He imagined 1,000 living rooms where love could be measured by pounds per square inch. He picked up the thumb drive and turned it over. It had a cartoon paw on the plastic. He put it back in the box and closed the lid gently. "Let's go for a walk," he said. His parents stared at him. "To the cabin?" his father asked after a beat. "Maybe just to the edge of the woods," Robert said. They went together, and if that sounds like a miracle, it was a small one, the kind you only notice afterward. The air was sharp enough to etch. The trees looked like pencils. They stopped where the road turned to path. The snow there remembered a big shape underneath. Robert stood a while and listened. He didn't hear anything but his own breath and two others. "Do we dig?" his father asked. "No," Robert said. "Not yet." On the way home, he saw a school bus passing, faces pressed to the glass, and thought of the bears arriving to those houses in the evenings, carried up steps in arms thinner than they should be, and of instructions nobody would read. He didn't know what any of it meant in the long length of the world. He only knew that when the doorbell rang again, today, tomorrow, he would be the one to answer, and he would say, "No, thank you," if he could, and he would mean it if he could, and love something else instead. That night, he slept without dreams. Somewhere, far under the trees, a blue shape rested. Snow fell and fell and fell like ash from a slow, kind fire. And somewhere else, 1,000 bears tilted their heads exactly the same way at exactly the same time and said, in voices soft as bedtime, "It's cuddle time."